I come from battle and conflict, with a shield in my hand, broken is the helmet by the pushing of spears. Gwynn Ap Nudd, from the Black Book of Carmarthen. Hello and welcome one and all to episode 10 of ExiledGottomas. I am Gottomas, your forever DM, and as always, the host of today's episode. Today we will be talking about the death of Ursa Colossus, and the birth of Gwynn Ap Nudd, the master of the wild hunt and the lord of the underworld in Welsh mythology. We will also be discussing the end of the current league and the start of the new league, which is going to be beginning sooner than anyone would have thought, it seems like. I had plans to do the build and buildcraft video and the league end video separately, but we had a death in our family, and then I had some of my medical problems flare up, and so I just got put way behind. So, today, now that I'm finally feeling better, and with us basically 5 days from the start of the new league, I decided to combine the two into one video. I apologize in advance that this video might be even longer than the ones that I usually create, but hopefully it will be worth it in the end. So without further ado, smoke you a little smoke, drink you a little drink, while I bestow upon you how the death of the bear led to the rise of the Lord of the Hunt. The first thing that I feel we need to discuss in today's episode is the death of Ursa Colossus, the Great Jade Bear. When I last described this character and the choices that I had made in his creation, with the idea of creating an uber tank that could literally just face tank any and all blows in the game, I had described the encased in jade skill and the complexities of it and how I wasn't exactly sure how it worked still, even after experimenting with it for so long. And Ursa at that point was level 72, if my memory serves correctly. While I had done what I wished on the defensive side of the build, I began noticing that there were some serious flaws that needed to be fixed. First off, his movements and normal attacks, despite being slow, which was no big deal, lacked the weight and the impact of a character that was based around the classic super strong Iron Man, X-Man character Colossus. In my head, I could absolutely justify the slowness of his attacks, as long as they still contained that element of super strength and the weight of the blows as they should. And that should have actually probably been the second most important thing in his character design, right behind the defensive transformation. The problem was, no matter how I respect the character build-out, I could not get it to yield the proper feel of the design that I had envisioned. I made some progress by switching him to an armor stacking build, and once again his defense shone through, and this brought me up to about level 80, not because I had managed to fix the problems, but instead because that actually shot my defense through the roof. I spent a lot of divs and really stacked this passive note tree and really tried to push for armor stacking exclusively because it still seemed fairly thematic. And then when I combined it with Walking Calamity, I was indeed pushing forward through content. The problem was, though, that the only time Colossus in the comics ever had fire-based abilities as far as I'm aware of was when he was one of the characters that was put into consideration to be the next home of the Phoenix Force. While this was close enough thematically to actually warrant the usage, it left me with a really bad taste in my mouth because that was not the version of Colossus that I had envisioned at the time of theory crafting and the character concept. The big problem I ran into was that while Feral Invocation worked wonderfully well with the Wolf and Cross Slash, the same was not true about the Bear's Furious Slam. It became highly inaccurate, it was still slow, and it did nowhere near the damage that the Cross Slash Wolf version had done. So while I was trying to wrap my brain around these things that I was unhappy with, as I mentioned earlier, I was still actually making some progress. It was slow, and I was still leveling up, but it was not easy. And when I hit level 80, it was like I ran into a hard shield wall, like I was charging the Spartan 300 by myself. I simply could not take hits anymore in T13 and higher juice maps the way I had previously been able to. I tinkered and tinkered and tinkered, and honestly spent close to 500 divs converting completely over to armor and armor stacking, as I mentioned just moments ago. Instead of energy shield and armor, I reworked the skill tree as thoroughly as I could, all the while trying to figure out what was wrong. Why couldn't I get the impacts of his blows to work the way that I wanted them to? Why did I feel that I had to use Walking Calamity to rain fire down on my enemies? And why couldn't I get my offense off the ground without sacrificing the defense that was keeping him alive? So at that point, I sacrificed offense for defense, which I was fine with. I really was. I was fine with that concept. But to be honest, it didn't make much of a difference. Then I tried stacking endurance charges to empower my abilities, and still I couldn't tank the way that I wanted, especially since even with the endurance charges empowering my attacks, if I didn't have Walking Calamity up, not only could I really not do normal damage, but I was nowhere near survivable enough to make the balance shift in my favor. So I could not tank the amount of damage I would absorb in the amount of time that it took me to kill something in return. And this was especially true with certain bosses that just, if they hit you, and with that bear form, you get hit a lot. It's got a big hitbox. And finally, when I tried just pushing into like base T15s with nothing, I mean just white T15s, it was like if they sneezed, I was still dying. And so I couldn't even gain any XP and keep progressing the character anymore. I spent days upon days working on it and trying to figure it all out. But to be honest, I had no success. I am still sure that it can be done. And I bet many of you guys, especially several of the guys that have helped me work on my builds and things like that over the course of this, y'all probably could already tell me what I was doing wrong if you took one look at my character, and I would probably feel stupid, to be honest, because it's probably something very simple that I just didn't read right or didn't understand properly. And it was really disappointing though, because with all of the failure that I had, if I worked with Walking Calamity and I was okay with all the fire raining down, I actually could have kept going. But I refused to do that because the thematics of it just were not sitting right with me. So day after day, map after map, and nothing. And to this day, something within the build is still eluding me. I still haven't figured out what it is, and I'm just decided I needed to shelve it. I was running out of time for the league end, and I did want to produce one more video before everything came to its close on 0.4. So then the question I had to ask myself was, if I can't make Ursa Colossus work, then what do I do with this level 80 character that I had spent so much time and currency on cultivating? What were my next steps? What did I need to turn it into something else? So I took a few days off to regather my thoughts and plan my next course of action. I actually still had one build for this season that I had really wanted to try and get done before the start of 0.5. And so I decided to make a compromise. While I knew that with a warrior base I could not get the ascendancy that would make this new character shine as much as I would have liked, I could re-roll my ascendancy and at least make something that I believe does a decently passing job at really thematically representing the character that I really wanted to build. So I decided then and there that that's what I was going to do. And I began to work on the logistics of the new build. First thing I did was I farmed up enough currency using my other characters to give me about a 200 div starting budget. Not anywhere near what a lot of builds run off of, but certainly not cheapening my experience by any means of the word, especially not at first. Then after I had my 200 div starting point, I needed to confirm the mythology of Gwynn Ap Nudd, the master of the wild hunt and the lord of the underworld from Welsh mythology. The master of the wild hunt is one of my all-time favorite myths and mythos. Western Europe is filled with different versions of him, and everyone had their own take on what he was, how he functioned, what he represented, what he did, and what the wild hunt was actually what the purpose of it was. And after cross-referencing everything that I could remember of his mythos and looking at all of the different types of myths that I could find of this character from various locations, I decided that the Welsh mythological version, Gwynn Ap Nudd, was the perfect representation. And so, now, how do I turn a warbringer who's been armor stacking into the master of the wild hunt? Well, the very first thing I needed to do was change my ascendancy. So I went back and I looked in detail, and the closest thing I could come up with was the Smith of Gottomas. And actually what drew me to the Smith of the Gottomas was the phantom weapon. I thought, hey, this has some really cool features, and I really could actually think about using a really awesome spear, and this would work perfectly. However, based on testing and retesting, the phantom weapon that follows behind you as a minion and attacks of its own volition really seemed to be lacking in strength. Really badly, actually. And so looking at it again, I thought about changing one more time, but then I came across just the very basic skill of the fire spell on hit. And that, in thematic purposes, actually kind of could work for me, because I didn't want to rain comets and things like that down, but it also kind of gave me that like mystical warrior kind of feel. Since it didn't happen often, it was not necessarily the sole purpose of the build. I actually was going to and ended up using lightning based attacks for pretty much everything there. And then just once every 4 or 5 hits, the fireball would come out and it would scatter, and it actually made me, the way it looks to me, it's almost like giant sparks from steel clashing with steel. And so that's what I kind of went with. I changed the ascendancy, clicked my button, and my league end build was set into motion, for good or for ill. The next thing I needed to actually look into were his weapons, and everything about the mythos and how I could represent it. Primarily, almost exclusively, he is represented with a spear. And it's usually considered like this legendary artifact level kind of spear, almost like Excalibur is for swords. And while we didn't have anything necessarily like that, we did have the special unique spear of Etziri that places the blood lances into the opponents, and then you can detonate those and heal yourself based off of them. That was the coolest thing I had seen as far as the spear went, and I had not ever actually looked at it until researching this character concept. Next actually came his hounds. Simple enough. I thought about doing specters and having a different type of companion, But once I really began crunching the numbers, it actually worked in my benefit to just use the new wolf pack and have it be my companion, and then using my specters and my spare spirit to bring together my two noble hunters. In the myth, a lot of times you hear that when Gwynn Ap Nudd slayed people, he would harvest and reap their souls to ferry them into the underworld. However, if they were a fallen noble warrior, they would join him as new huntsmen in his party, for lack of a better way of putting it. And they would help corral the souls of the dead and help him perform the actions of the wild hunt. So this seemed simple enough to find. There are several spear wielding specters, but one of the most interesting ones, in my opinion, is definitely the Faradun Impaler. It came down to either them or the Spearfisher, and the Faradun Impaler, for those of y'all who don't know, their damage is fairly lacking. But one thing that they do is they create this spear arena that covers the battlefield that you are able to fight in. And while it doesn't do very much damage, if you equip knockback into it, which was a suggestion from one of my guys in Discord who I communicate with and kind of bounce ideas off of, by putting knockback into it, it actually does fantastically well for control of the battlefield. Because something that can be right on side, like right on top of you, getting ready to attack, if they cast that ability and you're at the edge of it, and that spear field hits them, it will knock them at least 10 to 20 feet away from you. Bigger monsters, not so much, but anything humanoid it worked really well on. And even the bigger monsters, you could see it proccing and see the spears stabbing them, which slows them down, not much, but a little bit, and sometimes a little bit makes the difference in this game between whether or not you live or die. So lastly, one thing we really need to discuss about this build is that Huntsmasters don't wear bulky armor, and they're not spellcasters necessarily, so they don't use mystical energy shield. And so I knew immediately where my 200 div allocation of resources was going. I needed to get a copy of the unique Spear of Atziri. At this point in time, I found a really good level 18 one. Well, it's not level 18, but its ability, the Shattering Spite ability, was a level 18 skill. It was actually fantastic, and I got really lucky on it. It did not cost me very much, and I double corrupted it even, and it was just so cool to use. The other side of this was the defensive side, and since I couldn't use armor, I couldn't use energy shield because neither of those two things worked, it came down to evasion and deflection. I have to say, I had always heard that evasion by itself was super weak, or at least it felt super weak, and up until this point I had avoided it on any of my builds. That's just not, it's not usually my type of character, this one instance being a big exception. I also figured that this would be a good source of information for me to learn from. Just because I don't like playing glass cannons and the like does not necessarily mean that I shouldn't know how to do so. So, as shown by many depictions that I found artistically speaking, he looks like a huntsman wielding a spear. And he has his hounds and he has his fallen warriors at his side, and everything about him I felt I could represent nearly perfectly thanks to Path of Exile 2's current systems. Unfortunately, almost everything. He is almost always depicted in his myth riding his mount. And I know what some of you are going to say, well, there's a Roa mount in the game. I'm sorry, this isn't Final Fantasy. He's not a Final Fantasy character. He's not Cloud. He's not Sephiroth. and he certainly as hell is not a chocobo rider. So I had to leave the mount out. And you know what? Maybe down the road we'll have a different type of mount, or even just a different cosmetic. I wouldn't mind the Roa cosmetic if I could get the Roa mount, if I could get a cosmetic that actually made you think and understand, like, oh, he's riding a horse. I don't need special abilities. I don't need anything except him mounted on the right kind of animal. And then I've got, I think, every aspect of his myth covered. So, now that we've kind of gone over the reasons that I let the Great Jade Bear die, and we've gone over the reason of how the Master of the Wild Hunt rose from the dead bear's grave, and I think it's time we get ready to cover all of the details of the build. Once we finish going over all that, and we have seen the fully fleshed out character, I believe we will conclude this. With the last video, I believe we can conclude this, the last video of my channel for this patch, with my thoughts on the absolutely glorious release that we are a mere days away from getting. 0.5, and my thoughts and hopes for the league that we will be starting up before we know it. So I guess without further ado, now it's time to begin discussing the actual build of Gwynn Ap Nudd, the Master of the Wild Hunt. Okay guys, so now that we've talked about how Ursa Colossus was put to rest, and we began our title of Gwynn Ap Nudd and how the Master of the Wild Hunt came to be about, it's time to go over our gear and everything. So, here is our spear. This is actually one of the more cool uniques in the game to me. Very expensive for a unique, but actually the spear skills inflict a bloodstone lance is amazing. And when you use it at full stacks, it can really save you if you need to. I got lucky on the double corrupt. Thank God I didn't have to buy another one of those. But for the most part, it came basically like you see. I wish I could have double corrupted into a secondary socket. That would have been fantastic. But, I mean, with only the one socket, given the extra cold damage and the critical damage bonus, yeah, I really couldn't argue with it, to be honest with you. Next up, for thematic's sake, the Alpha's Howl Armored Cap. And again, this was a decently priced one when I got it. But I've had it for a long time sitting in my stash. Though I am not using it as the cosmetic for this character. I liked the hooded, robed look with Geonor's stuff just better to me. I don't really have a reason to. The big thing here that was huge was getting the 100% increased evasion rating and getting the double socket. Those two things were huge to me because evasion, man, you really do. You just have to stack it high if you're going to have any chance of it actually helping you out. And coming across our guiding palm of the Mind Shrine Scepter. This one I actually got pretty plain and did pretty much any of the crafting stuff myself. So very proud of this one actually. I mean, it's dumb luck when it comes to certain things like the double corruption and stuff, but overall, this is my first experience with the Palm of the Mind. I tried the fire one as well, and I tried the cold one as well. And in the end, thematically speaking, the lightning strikes worked so much better thematically, in my opinion, for how I envision this character. And of course, lightning damage is just one of the strongest damage types in the game. I mean, it really, really is. Especially when you get into shocked and electrocution and all that good stuff. So we'll go back over here now to the Woe Heart Gold Amulet. This is one I crafted basically from scratch. I got lucky. I did the sanctification. I did the Desecration. I did the Jack of all trades allocation to it. When I first got it, it basically only had the +3 to level of all melee skills, and the 70 life and the evasion rating. Pretty much everything else I did. So very proud of that craft. It actually, I'll probably try and do something similar and duplicate this hopefully in the coming league, just because it is more than paid for what I put into it, for sure. The newest thing is actually this ring here. I just got this ring probably a week ago, maybe even 10 days at this point in time. The biggest thing there to me was getting Desecration on the lightning damage. It really, really made a huge difference. My resistances are all pretty good to begin with, so I didn't really need the resistance very much. But getting that extra lightning damage was huge, and getting the dexterity was actually really, really big as well. So very pleased. Oh, I did say the resistances. I did need the chaos resistance, the 27%. It was definitely a must-have for sure. Our other ring is an unset ring. Now, I typically use unset rings in at least one in pretty much every build, but most of the time I end up using two. Again, this is where a lot of my primary resistances came from. I never tried to double corrupt this thing. I was happy with just the +10 intelligence, and the biggest thing to me when I got this ring was, again, the lightning damage was in it, and the evasion rating was in it, and then I just perfect exalted everything until I desecrated and then corrupted. So nothing huge here, but very functional for what I needed it to do. Now, this is probably the most expensive piece of kit that I have, especially because some of you may know I've already told you that I spent about 800 divs, not on this, but on 3 high evasion rated body armors before this, and tried to double corrupt them and do what I needed to with them, and yeah, they all 3 failed and destroyed. So in the grand scheme of things, I think I came out to 960 divs for this, but one piece, because of every expenditure that I had to put into the others before they were disintegrated. Yeah, that good old bad luck can really come back and get you in this game. Now, for one of the actual, this is another central piece. This is just as important in my opinion as the spear, because the culling strike on everything that this character does is amazingly high, high quality, high value. I did do the double corruption on it. I did have to go through about 3 of these as well, but none of these were very expensive, most likely just due to how fairly common these gloves are. I mean, I already had 1 pair. I tried to craft it and do everything. It disintegrated. I think I bought two or three more, but again, not very expensive, but amazingly powerful because of that culling strike break, just sitting there on it. And then when I double corrupted this one and got the increased attack speed and the break increased armor, it was done and done. Absolutely one of the most key elements to this build completely. Coming over to the boots, these are nothing fancy. They are, however, just as stacked as I could get them. I think I probably put about 60 div in this, so these weren't bad. And again, I did do the double corruption. I got lucky. I got that second socket on it, which was nice, because then I was able to use the what is it? The Tithe Amanus or whatever, the one that gives you the movement speed per 15 spirit, which is really, really nice when you actually are running a minion-based build. I did get some decent fire resistance in this one, and that 896 evasion has definitely helped stack what I could. Now, an interesting one. After many tries, and actually doing it on 2 different characters and bricking an enormous amount of them, disintegrating an enormous amount of them, I finally realized that I had been misreading this in a very stupid manner. on corruption, item gains 2 enchantments. So to me, that sounded like if you were going to corrupt it, you get 2, and then if you corrupted it again, you would get 2 more. That's not how it actually reads. It is on corruption, not on twice corruption or all corruption. So the most you can actually get with the twice corruption on this is 3 enchantments. After many tries, like I said, and finally figuring it out and experimenting, and I'm real bad about using my personal economy to, if I've got extra, I don't mind spending it just so I can figure out something. Grand total, this probably is well over 900 div between all the different belts that I experimented with, the different belts that disappeared, the different belts that got less got less evasion rating, that whole deal. I probably went through at least 10 belts of this type, just trying to make that actually work. So take that for a nice piece of helpful advice. If you don't know that already, that on corruption item gains 2 enchantments. That only works on the very first corruption. Then after that, it can get another one, but you can't get 2 more, which was very disappointing. But when you're an evasion stacker and you get 25% increased evasion rating on one, and you've already got a nice belt sitting there, this is a powerful utility item for sure. Nothing fancy about the flasks. Both flasks are just the best that I could do with what I had to work with, and again, I wasn't even hunting necessarily specifically anything, just most charges and most amount recovered. The charms, again, are nothing really crazy. I was vulnerable to bleeding, vulnerable to poison, and vulnerable to becoming frozen. I wish I had a better frozen charm on here, but for what it does, the only thing I didn't want to have happen to me for most part, for sure, was the immunity. I could not be frozen. If I get frozen and I get stuck, this character dies. And it doesn't even take something big. The moment you stop moving and stutter stepping and that kind of thing, you will get just blown the hell up. The consecrated ground on use, and their unique properties are great, but not necessary. So I would say if you were going to do these, just try and make sure that I think the freeze is the biggest one that you definitely need, and everything else just kind of fit in with what you need, what you can, that kind of thing. So let's start over with skills. Shattering Spite. This is the skill that comes from our unique spear that is so amazing. And if you read through all of this, man, it is just so powerful when you get a full 30 stacks on something. And if you have, say your twisters are out and about, and your, all your different things that create hits will all land and stack. So you can throw tornado things out all day long and then tap this, and when you stamp on the ground, it creates a chain explosion amongst the enemies. I just supported it with super critical because I can't use it very much because I want it to be stacked up to 30 stacks if possible, especially against a boss. Hit and run, once again. You don't want to stop moving for any more time than you have to. And so, since I'm stacking these things anyway, giving me 40% more skill speed to activate it when I'm in the middle of big combat is an enormous benefit, enormous change for it. And I really actually liked this a lot more than I thought I would when I first put it in. Execute 3 is self-explanatory, especially on bosses. You're just wanting to get that extra push towards the end. Minion Pack 2. Fairly self-explanatory in my opinion. The big thing here is that if you have a minion that can't die, that's actually a pretty nice little way to combat this ability. And so if you have tech rods like I do, and you utilize this in conjunction with tech rods on the minion, a lot of times this is just a free flat kind of damage because they take the damage, they just don't die from the damage. last up on this one is Execrate. And I'm still I'm still undecided on this one. This is the most recent one that I've been tinkering with. The big thing here is if you're trying to shock, which I of course am with everything, 100% more chance to inflict shock on the spears because they're doing so much lightning damage. With 30 spears, yeah, that's actually a pretty, seems to be a pretty potent thing. However, I do think that there might be other things that I could slot in this 5th slot that would probably have more benefit to me. So coming up next is Purity of Lightning. That's simple enough. The big thing here, since I don't need that, is just being able to run the Vitality 2 and the Clarity 2. It gives me a home base for those. Now, when I was discussing the character's concept, the fire spell on hit is one of the things that I mentioned. And there are a lot of different fire spells, obviously, in the game. But I think just the base Fireball ended up being my overall favorite way to use this. And so Fireball with, maximum quality that I could. Boundless Energy seems to make it happen really fast. I can pretty much trigger it every 3 or 4 hits, it seems like. Wild Shards 2, self-explanatory. Ricochet 2 is nice for when those when Wild Shards goes off, because those fireballs will bounce all over the place if they have room and don't strike something. And Projectile Acceleration. Again, very self-explanatory. I don't use Spear Throw on this character at all, and I don't use Spear Stab on this character at all. So when we then talked about, in concept, the Wolf Pack becoming my companion. So I did Dialia's Desire to give it extra support, extra level, because I'm not spec'd into companions and minions at all on this, actually. They're just vehicles for thematic sake and certain supports. So giving them the extra quality here was huge, because you get that extra wolf, which is just a wonderful, wonderful thing. Tech Rods, of course, that makes it where you cannot, you can't kill it. For that time period that it talks about, 20 seconds, they just are there, and they get bigger, they get stronger, they get tougher, and they do more damage over the time. Ramira's Requital. Now this syncs very well to Tech Rods because they're still taking the damage, they just don't die. And as a result of that, this actually goes a long way to stretch out the usefulness, in my opinion, of Ramira's Requital. And of course, a lot of these things I say this, and I say like I know exactly what I'm talking about, and I'm still learning about this game in every aspect of every day. So there is a possibility that you know something I don't, and if so, please let me know. I'm not opposed to somebody letting me know that I've made a mistake on anything, and especially if it makes me get stronger. Rapid Attacks too, simple. And Shock, simple enough again. Mainly just because I'm the lightning damage. Our Scepter over there gives the minions lightning damage as well. So that's actually a pretty big bonus when you have 100% more chance to shock. Very, very simple. Now the War Banner, this one was surprising to me. I can generate enough energy with War Banner for the glory to use this really often, actually, especially in boss fights. And giving the whole group of all my minions and everything extra spirit. I'm sorry. Extra attack speed. That's the biggest one. 25% attack speed is enormous when you have a whole pack of things fighting and helping you. Magnified area, self-explanatory. Prolonged duration, self-explanatory. Durecio's Passion. This is why we can get it up so fast. Without this, it does take a little bit longer, but still not terrible. Expanse, of course, same thing. And since 8 seconds sounds like a long time, but when you're having to build up the glory to use it, pretty much on cooldown, you can, as long as you're fighting, you can pretty much have this available every 8 seconds on cooldown. And it lasts, I mean, it really does last 9.6 seconds currently. So you have 100% uptime if you really want it. Now, most of the time, it can be a little bit tricky to position yourself properly and stuff to be like, and to keep it up to that 100% because it does take about a half second, it seems like, for the banner to go down. And that half second, if you're not moving in the wrong spots, you will just, you'll get blown the hell up. Second wind, it has seemingly been a really great thing to try and get through that cooldown as fast as possible, that 8 seconds. So it does also give us a nice maximum life per second of cooldown, so we're getting that nice little healing off of it, which I actually really like. It's not huge, but it all stacks up, man, especially on a character like this. Herald of Thunder, this is very self-explanatory considering how we're doing our lightning-based attacks and everything, in my opinion. I don't think anybody would be surprised that I use Herald of Thunder. Lightning Mastery, Culling Strike 2. I find this interesting because I like that gain 20% increase Culling Strike threshold for 20 seconds on culling with supported skills. We have actually spec'd into a decent amount of Culling Strike. Usually I can cull things with this spear and my attacks when they get down to about, the ones that matter anyway, the rares at about 30%, 35%. And if you get multiple rares in the mix, it's a little bit faster, but this will actually take it into play a big... there's a trick here that I'm very happy actually to have worked around it. I'm very impressed that it worked the way it did. However, when we go over it, I fully spec'd into the Culling Strike at one point, and I was culling things too fast to do the trick, and so it wasn't working properly the way I wanted it to. It didn't feel right. So I do like to hover at just enough Culling Strike threshold to hit at about 35% roughly. And that way, when we do our trick, it's easy to notice, it's easy to aim, the whole nine, and I'll explain that here shortly. Living Lightning 2. It's not necessarily the strongest. I love it, though. It's so much fun, and it's very active, and it lights up the screen, and it spreads shocks, and it has been a blast to work with. Now, I had obviously something else here, but I took it out recently, and I still haven't switched in anything else yet because I wasn't sure what I wanted to use, to be honest. My spirit reservation is very limited, so that what can go into Herald of Thunder is already now limited even further, so I haven't put anything else in there yet. And lastly, electromagnetism. Now, as far as I know, this works. I could be wrong. Sometimes it's hard to see when all of the lightning is going off at once exactly what's happening and get the testing done specifically. So if I'm wrong and electromagnetism doesn't work with Herald of Thunder, please let me know. This one I really am unsure of if it works or if it doesn't, but it seems like it does. So now we're on to our Culling Strike trick. So Rapid Assault is very great. 6 rapid stabs is awesome. Now, the interesting thing about that is that those 6 rapid attacks, anywhere near that 35 to 40%, if we are doing our Culling Strike at that threshold, this is the attack that I use to trigger this. And Einhorn's Beast Right, it's the supported skills can only damage low life enemies. So if they're not low life, if they're right at that threshold from when they'll be culled versus not, and I trigger this, and my wolves, for instance, are biting them, and their health is just ticking down, most of the time I can keep modifiers up. When you watch the gameplay footage, watch the 2 little modifiers from this. A lot of times I'll have this up pretty much the entire map, just sealing multiple groups of mods over and over and over. Every time I run into a rare that has good mods in their selection, I try and single it out. I wear it down just slightly, and then I cull it. And when I cull it, it doesn't matter if it's a low life, so to speak, and can do damage. What matters is a Culling Strike is a killing blow. And so if it culls it and it kills it, even if it did no damage, it grants the 2 modifiers for 300 seconds. That is enormously powerful, in my opinion. And I've had many discussions about where the sweet spot seems to be. And after talking with multiple people and going over this and really trying to hash it out in depth, I really think that this is 35 to 40% on a rare enemy is right at perfect, at least for my playstyle. You might be able to go up to like 50%, but I found at 50%, then I would cull everything else around the rare so fast, the magic and the common ones, that by the time I was ready to start paying attention to the rare, everything else had died, and then it would get culled right off the bat right after that because it was already approaching the threshold so fast. Keeping it down to around 35-40% makes it a lot easier to see and to utilize the trick and the tech that I'd try and do, and keep those mods up over and over and over and over again. And then Uhtred's Omen, just to make this even stronger. I don't really have anything better necessarily to put in with Einhar's, and since this only works with something that has one other modifier, it seemed like a really good pairing. I guess it could. Maybe there's some others that could be better. I'm sure there are. A lot of you can probably tell me. But so far, this has been my favorite thing to pair with Einhar's, and it seemed the most impactful. So now we're on to really our bread and butter abilities. Primal Strikes, my favorite of the spear skills completely. This thing, man, the spirits that when they come out and rage, it happens so much, so fast, covers the screen in lightning. It is just amazing. Ancestral Call, gotta love being able to ancestrally boost anything, especially at that speed. The Crescendo doubles the 360 degree swing of the spear, and so it's a very nice finale, especially though, and you'll see, if you're watching the gameplay footage while we're discussing other things, you'll see that I'm using a technique that I used to use in MOBAs, actually specifically in Heroes of the Storm, that we called stutter stepping, where you attack, you move about 2 feet, you attack, move about 2 feet, and it keeps the enemies from really being able to lock in on you as well, and it keeps you constantly just at the point, because Crescendo does have at the end of it, it's like there's a lag between the second of the final strikes and then the start of the new chain. This seems to keep it almost a constant, like every second to a second and a half, you're unleashing an attack, and it stutters the timing of it so that it is always functioning at full speed, which is something I learned with Dahaka a long time ago, is that his attack, if you were just standing there swinging, his attacks did not do as much DPS because they weren't at full swing. There was a lag. So by stutter stepping, you actually get to bypass that aspect of it. I did not know I could use that technique in this game, but once it clicked in my head that that's what I needed to do, it changed. It was a night and day difference in the amount of DPS I was actually pumping out with this. Innervate, I think that's pretty much simple explanation. Rockiatas, to try and absolutely make sure that our lightning is getting our shocks in and our electrocutions and all that in. And rapid attacks. Self-explanatory there. This is the attack that we use most of all and does the most damage for our bossing, does the most damage for our mapping, you name it. This is our bread and butter, going to use it all the time attack. Whirling Slash is here for a couple of reasons. The knockback is really, really nice, and the blind is really, really nice. Especially when you get those on top of like an elemental ground, and you can suck up fire, suck up ice, or whatever. Powerful in its own right, but this is definitely more of a control aspect for this character, not the focal point. Magnified area, simple enough. Shock, simple enough. Static shocks, again, this one's not, there's nothing really here that's groundbreaking. I mean, I think any of you could probably build this or probably even make it even stronger than that, especially if you were focusing in on it. Literally, I use it primarily for the control, and I use it to boost the twisters. The twisters are there actually for blinding, long distance application of your blood lances, which is enormous, especially when you're in bosses or you're in like a heavy abyss and you've got multiple like the big abyss monsters with the double spears. You got 3 of them on the map. If you've got all that running around and everything, it's nice to be able to throw a twister out, throw a whirling slash with a twister out, let it bounce around while you're continuously bobbing and weaving and moving. And when you do, you can trigger that explosion, and man, it really will. It'll stack up real fast on it. At first, I wasn't sure it would, but it does absolutely apply the blood lances, which is a really cool tech. Caltrops. I've been tinkering with this. I don't really like it. If I was going to be continuing to play this character more, Caltrops would be pulled out. I tried and tried and tried. I just didn't like it. It doesn't seem to. It doesn't seem to be very effective, to be perfectly honest with you. Shock conduction, easy. Projectile acceleration, easy. Volt. This is cool because I'm always bobbing and moving. Since I'm always bobbing and moving and weaving and stutter stepping, I'm always being able to travel the distance needed for this to work. It's not going to work, obviously, every swing of your spear. But if you go as you move from one pack to a next with this type of fighting style, you will be at maximum charges for almost, I'd say, 80 to 90% of the time on this. And prolonged duration, just to make sure they keep bouncing around and applying those lances. Mirage Archer, this was huge. I had never tinkered with this before, and I had honestly forgot that you could use this on a spear. And, I tried Glacial Lance. I really did. I really liked Glacial Lance, but I couldn't seem to get the freezing to work the way that I wanted it to. It was not consistent enough. So in the end, we went with just old school lightning spear. Just kept piling on the lightning. Prolonged duration, innervate, chain 3, projectile acceleration. This is actually probably one of my favorite spirit reserving skills in the game now. I'd say it's very, very close to my favorite outside of the minions and companions. Mainly because of the amount of customization that you can get with this, because there are so many good spear and bow skills and crossbow skills. This is definitely going to be a skill I use going forward with those 3 types of weapons. If I'm running this style of character, I will probably always have this as a keep on deck, ready to go kind of thing. Wind Dancer is a great defensive buff. It doesn't sound like it would be, but if you get that 3 stages and you get the extra evasion rating, it's great. And the Gale Force does a surprising amount of damage, actually. So if you do get it and you get hit with that 3, a lot of times that can save you from, like, what would be a 2-tap, for instance. They die when they hit you on the 1-tap, and then you're saved just enough to be able to use potions. Now, you have to understand the defenses of this character, because evasion is so weak, we do use our potions quite a bit. It is. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I guess if I focused a lot more on damage and being glass cannon and I just destroyed them as they got anywhere near me. But for my playstyle and the way my hands work, yeah, this was a lifesaver actually towards the long part of the end game. And I am on the Spearfisher currently. From recent testing, I said that I ended up liking the Faradun Impaler more, and you will see the Faradun Impaler in a lot of the gameplay footage in the video if you pay attention to it. But you'll see the Spearfisher every now and again too. They're both good in their own ways. The projectiles are great. The Spearfisher gives you the cold, so you get slows, whereas the Impaler gives the control from the Spearfield arenas, which is insane. But the big thing here, the reason I was testing out the Spearfisher here, is because of Aminamu's Tithe. You notice that I don't have any sort of things boosting this, so level 19 minion with a ranged minion with a low health pool. It's great that they do that little bit of control, but the big thing here is that when they die, a lot of times I'm running 3 abyssal monster modifiers, and 2 rare modifiers. So you can stack up to 5 modifiers. I wish there was a tooltip that you could see what modifiers you were pulling from what things. But you can absolutely get up to 5 modifiers consistently in this build and run almost 5 the entire way out through the entirety of that map. It's really cool tech. Rapid attacks, no big deal. Feeding Frenzy, no big deal. Heft, no big deal. And the reason I did Heft here, and this is one I would have to ask if anyone does know, the Spearfisher, for instance, it says it converts its maximum physical damage to Cold. And if that's the case, then I think if I do more maximum physical hit damage, then it converts after that. So it should scale the offense up a decent amount if I'm doing the math conversion correctly. And then last up, Projectile Acceleration 3. So there's all of our skills. Now, time to do the passives, and this one's going to be the fun one, because if you remember, we are a Smith of Katava. Alright, so this is the manifest weapon. This is the thing I tried and tried and tried, and I could not get to work accurately or with any sort of real power behind it or anything. It just did not work. And I did not want to do the breastplate stuff. That would seem like its own... You should focus on that, and that did not fit with the character. So we just went with the fire spell on hit, and then we went with these resistances. That's how we got our defensive up. The melee damage, we pretty much only do melee damage with our spear stabs and the stutter step, so that was great. And the 5% increased strength, and that's great when you've got the jack of all trades. My strength is actually a little bit lower than it has been running after I switched into that lightning ring. But the jack of all trades, I was running at like 104 strength or 106 strength. So simple math there, and you can see why I instilled that into it. So if we pan out now, starting from this area though, I knew we need to go and get down. So I tried to just calculate the shortest path that I could. I did not miss this node for the strength and the dexterity, but the evasion rating is what we were really against, and the 20% reduced critical damage bonus. That's huge if you're talking about a character that has pretty low life and has, you know, no other defenses other than deflection and evasion. So we just took that notable there and then kept going down on our path. Again, nothing crazy. This is just giving us, you know, more defense where we can get it. And that 60% evasion rating, if you've hit an enemy recently, is powerful. Very, very powerful, because we're constantly hitting things with this character. Then we went with this jewel socket just to give us a little bit of companion damage increase, but mainly it's the gives us the little bit of attack speed increase that we were going with, and attack speed with spears increase. And then we cut across, we did the companions and herald stuff. This has actually been a series of nodes that were really nice. Came out over here, more defense, more defense, more defense, as you can see. Trying to stack that evasion up as high as possible. When we got down here, even more deflection rating, increased evasion rating. We came out over here and we made sure we get the herald skill reservations, because we did want minions and herald skills. So we needed to, without maximizing the amount of spirit we had, try and help our efficiency out as much as possible. Coming down here, because of the +3 to tributes, +3 to all tributes, I think there's probably some stuff I could use these 2 points to do that might be more beneficial. But that's just kind of where I'm at right now. There's about 6 points in this character that I've been moving around and testing and moving and testing, that kind of thing. Big thing here is the +8 to strength, 8 to strength again. I like anything over +5 is fantastic, so that's why those are there. Down here, it's the rare and unique killers. Everything that you can do that I could get a hold of to increase the bossing capabilities. because that inevitably a lot of times is the hardest thing for this character to do. Once you start chain exploding, with Herald of Thunder and the primal spirits from the lightning stabs and all that stuff, the mapping isn't that bad. The rare unique, though, that one can be a little bit dicey depending on who you're, which boss you're actually fighting. So try and take as much as you could. Came across, and Culling Strike. Finally got to that part I was talking about, and we did not go this way because I don't have really any kind of immobilization on this character. I've thought about tinkering with this and trying to get more immobilization, but it seemed like a lot of investment actually in the end, despite it only being 2 points, because then I'd have to invest in the immobilization aspect of it as well. Came up here, and looky there, of course, more evasion rating. Took everything we could with Spear, trying to make it as good as we possibly could. If you're not familiar, this is actually a pretty hardcore, powerful set of nodes right here. I actually was very impressed with how much better this felt after I got to it. And then we moved across, and there we are with Herald stuff again. And we own one of the ones we've been tinkering with was the getting this and getting that as the other 2 points. But the reservation efficiency is, I think if I took those 2 points off of the +3s down here where we were at just a minute ago and put these here, it seems to actually lose a decent amount of damage, despite me being able to have better reservation efficiency, which is, it's a plus and minus and give and take kind of thing. Moving on up towards the end of our stuff, we've got more intelligence, biggest we could get in these nodes, but here is the big one, is the gain accuracy and evasion rating based on intelligence. When you're running specters, you want high intelligence rating. So this is actually to me, this is one of the more powerful nodes on this tree for this character, to be honest with you. And last up, evasion rating, you can see just trying to stack that defense up as high as possible. And that one, especially Bestial Skin, is truly amazing, amazingly powerful thing when you have such a high stack body armor with evasion. So we ended up, not a ton of life, not necessarily a ton of mana, a decent amount of spirit. Our resistances, though, are pretty good. It's been interesting trying to bring up that chaos resistance just a little bit, but so far it hasn't really mattered. I mean, I'm doing T15s now without much issue. So when I was running out of time, I basically just said, we'll call it here. We've met our successful points that I can say that the character build out for my personal win conditions as a success. Could it be a lot better? Yes. Could be a lot worse. Absolutely. Especially considering how long it took me to learn how to stack evasion and do that kind of build. It was a very intensive kind of thing. So now you've seen all of Gwynn Ap Nudd, and we will come right back and discuss the upcoming league changes, and hopefully here soon, in the next few days, man, we'll be off and running the races just like everybody else with the biggest patch update in history. So now I guess let's talk about the few things that I really hope for going forward with me personally and the way the patch is, not necessarily the specifics of the patch notes and all of that, but more just like a general trajectory for where the game is going and the kind of things I'm very curious to get to try and experience. Okay, so now that we've discussed League and we've discussed the fall of the Jade Bear and we've discussed the rise of Gwynn Ap Nudd, then now I think let's finish out today's episode and our last episode of the season with just some general talk real quick about what's coming and how absolutely amazing it is. I've watched every interview video I can. I've watched it probably 2 or 3 times, actually, if I want to be honest with you. I've read the patch notes. I've looked at character starts, league starts. I've been conversing in Discords. I still am honestly not sure what I'm going to do for league start. I really, really want to do a new Legion build. I think that would be a lot of fun with the new Spirit Walker stuff and taming the boss and everything. And I really want to do a Chayula Monk, because it really sounds to me like they have hinted really hard that there's going to be a new Ascension class that's one of the hidden classes, like Abyssal Lich, but it'll be something to deal with Chayula. However, both of those things seem so interesting to me, Monk and the Spirit Walker, but Monk, I think most people would be playing Martial Artist. What I concern myself with is an economic standpoint. I think those items will be hard to come by, good ones, especially in the trade market. I think if you're looking for a really good spear, it's going to be tough. If you're looking for a really good quarterstaff, it's going to be tough. Anything that would benefit those two classes, I think, is going to be expensive, because I think there will be an absolutely plethora of people trying them out, and from min-maxers all the way down to casuals, because they are so cool looking. And I will play them eventually. I 100% will play them over the course of this league all the way up till 1.0. However, for league start, I'm unsure still what I want to do. I probably, if I'm being honest, will run another version, maybe a newer, more updated version of the Oracle Wolf, because I think that everybody got their druid fixation out of the way. And I think talismans will probably be a lot more reasonable and a lot less expensive. Since that is one of my favorite builds, I think that that's going to be a really good farming build as well, especially based around all of the different types of new game modes. I'm really actually happy with the fact that they've created this like destination setup where you go west, you get this, you go north, you get this, you go south, you get this. In the end of the league, I would hope that I've got at least one character that flourishes, that thrives in each one of those directions. And I think that that would be absolutely so cool, because then no matter what mood you're in as far as what kind of content you want to do, you've got something that you enjoy playing that's also geared to be strong in each of those 4 cardinal directions. Another thing that I think is going to be really interesting is this runic crafting system, and the ability to upgrade previous uniques and make them more viable. I don't know if anybody has given it any thought or not, but if you could upgrade the talisman, for instance, that gives you the hyena pack, and make it actually viable in the end game as far as the base attack power and stuff like that that talisman can give you, we might see something new into the meta that we hadn't seen, because I have not seen a single person run that hyena pack, not one. And while it's such a cool thematically charged item, and it just was overwhelmingly underperforming in comparison to the vast majority of other things, let alone say a talisman that had +7 to melee skills. It just big difference. I think, honestly, that I've never even considered a game being potentially as good as this game is already turning out to be. It is mind-boggling to me how the devs at GGG have been able to just like thoroughly outclass themselves. It's like every single patch is bigger and better and more amazing, and they've already told us also that before 1.0 they're going to do rebalancing changes. Hell, I would absolutely love to see them do an economy reset, and when they do introduce a new class, like maybe the Marauder type class, I'm still hoping against hope that sometime we get water skills in this game. If we can sail in the ocean, we can buy cosmetics that look like water-based things, we can summon minions that are water-based things, not cold, water. I would absolutely love to see a druid form or a sorcerer form of a character that used water stuff for attacks. That's my own personal biggest wish, I think, for this game in the future, is for them to be one of the very few games would have ever come across that actually made that distinction. Almost always, water stuff equates to cold, or it equates to storms, and those are your two options, and there's no real water about it. It's just how, I don't know. I know that years ago I was told by a buddy of mine who actually was doing some game development that the coding for water was super, super hard to make it look good. But GGG has already mastered this. The water effects in this game are gorgeous. And when you see the Riptide minions slinging waves, actually, and like plowing monsters across the battlefield using big tsunami-looking waves, I think they could easily do it, and it would be my new instant favorite main that I would play every league, no matter what. I also cannot wait to see how some of my other friends who are playing this game currently, they're very creative. Big shout out to Muffin Dump, man. I hope Muffin gets this Valkyrie thing. He's working on Divine Valkyrie, and it sounds amazing. I cannot wait to come across it. I will be joining his stream any chance I can to watch that thing in action, because it sounds so cool what he's thinking about doing. Let's see, what else? I like the new shield that they've added into the game. I like the new uniques. I cannot wait to see what the other uniques are that they've hinted at but have not shown us yet. I'm super excited to get a chance to work in the new league mechanic for the Citadel thing. It sounds really, really cool. The new Atlas tree is amazing. And see, I'm in a minority there, I guess, because I never played Path of Exile 1. The Atlas tree to me was never that bad. It seemed like a lot of work to get it, what you could, fleshed out. But that was not a problem. That's the end game goal. I never had much of an issue with that. I'm so looking forward to the day that, though, we figure out more and more of these things that GGG has hinted at. And now that I know about the fishing thing, I think whoever finds the fishing in the game will be the first. They're going to be so immensely popular because it apparently has been 15 years and we still don't know exactly how to do the fishing. But if you look in the item trade center, you can buy a fishing rod. If anybody had one to sell, nobody has one to sell. I think one of the absolute coolest things that could possibly be happening is on its way, and that is the diversity of different types of guilds that I think will be popping up. If anyone has ever watched Shangri-La Frontier, they have guilds for lore, they have guilds for bossing, they have guilds for endgame, they have guilds for player killers, they have guilds that focus on every aspect of these things because the content in the game is so absolutely tremendously large that they need to be able to focus on this. I think this game could absolutely, and is probably almost guaranteed to be going that direction. There's hours upon hours of lore already. I see people post in Reddit and stuff talking about, like, we noticed that there's this pattern on this side of the wall, and if you zoom in on it, you can see this. That's the kind of thing that really hooks big gamers, especially from other genres of games. For instance, myself being a former forever DM. Never seeing any sort of game like this where there are so many hints available and so many new things and false, not false promises, false bait. You go down this rabbit hole looking at something you think is right, and it's not. It's been bait the whole time to get people interested, to get them, keep them cross-referencing other materials, to keep them continuously exploring. This game has the ability to do something that I've never seen in any game before, and I would love, by the time my actual end goal for this league, whereas I've mentioned my goals for each character for me to say that they are complete, for me, this league, by the time 1.0 comes out, my goal is to have a thriving Discord with the guild basically filled to the brim and us continuously expanding, so that we can have one person who leads a group of people who are lore seekers and who are constantly providing any answers about the lore, or researching the lore, or studying the screenshots and things. I'd love to have a division in our guild where there is people who specialize in single target DPS bossing, and they run bosses and help you clear the top tier maps that people are struggling, these pinnacle things. I'd love to have people who specialize in breach, people who specialize in delirium, people who specialize in the runic, the Kalguran expeditions out into the ocean. I think we can actually have singular divisions of even crafters within the guild. I think you can have different types of crafters. I think if you had somebody who is a banker in real life, having a merchant section would be very good. Someone who could continuously work with materials, that currency that's provided to them, and work on doing things the hideout warriors are known for, where they sit in their base and they just make money for the guild. If that's what people enjoy, then I think all the power to them, because we could bring them all under the same umbrella. And then you have theory crafters, and you have all the... It's just staggering to me that the amount of content coming in this game, and that's already present in this game, can actually yield that level of player interaction. I think it's just one of the coolest things I've ever heard of in any video game, no matter what console or PC or what generation of games it was. And it leaves me infinitely excited, for considering the fact that I'm always still trying to find time to even be able to build the builds I want to build. It's staggering to me how much more they're adding, and how much more content will be present in nothing but 6 months' time. It's just, it's super exciting. But I have now definitely talked your ears off for long enough, and so I think with that, we're going to call it a day. I'm going to go to the family cookout and get ready. Actually, my birthday is tomorrow. Yay me. I turned dusty old fart age of 42. And I think it's going to be a blast. We'll get the kids out and we'll go cook out, and it's going to be fun. And then we'll get ready and geared up for 0.5. So I hope you had a good day. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm sorry it ran so long. I hope you enjoyed your smoke. I hope you enjoyed your drink. I really do appreciate anybody who is listening to this, and all of the help that the community has given me, and all of the knowledge that they have helped teach me. And with that, guys, this is Gottomas from ExiledGottomas, wishing you all a great day, and good luck in your own theory crafting, build planning, exploring, and money making in-game. Have a great day.